I've noticed that there are many series that purposely try to make themselves subversive masterpieces, try their best to subvert expectations, but in the process lose a little something about themselves. Maybe in an effort to be different, they forget to focus on the story that they wanted to tell. But there is a series that chooses to tell its own story while still kind of being a massive FU to other series like it. I've got a question for you. What does it mean to subvert expectations? It's a term tossed around a lot, especially when talking about movies and series that aren't super well liked. According to the most trusted site in the world, Google.com, subverting expectations is a literary term and technique that has to do with using plot twists in a story to surprise and challenge an audience. Now, that's probably like the dictionary definition of the phrase, but I like to think about it in a different way. Say this area right here is the possible scope of the plot. This is what they established to be possible in the story. And this line is the plot of the series, what actually happens. Anywhere this line goes makes sense, because this is what they established to be the case. Now, the difference between subverting expectations and a plot twist is that the plot literally twists itself to show another side to the plot that you didn't see, but it still makes sense because it was always there, just hidden away, just out of sight. Subverting expectations, meanwhile, takes the plot in a completely new direction that wasn't in the scope of the initial plot. That's why it's so annoying to so many people. Now, what does that have to do with the series we're talking about today, The World After the Fall? Well, it's actually quite simple. The World After the Fall, or the Webtoon series, because I don't really want to say The World After the Fall every time I bring it up. Anyways, this series is quite familiar to other reverse isekais, in which some magical aspect of another world invades the earth and humanity is given powers and opportunities to protect the world by climbing the tower and yada yada yada, whatever, nothing we haven't seen before. This series isn't interested in creating a brand new, never before seen series onto Webtoon. There are a bunch of reverse isekais on the platform. I've talked about them in depth, and you can watch these videos if you want that topic. But instead, this series chooses to focus on the more gritty and almost dark side to what a reverse isekai would actually be like. Now, I'm not saying that series like this aren't gritty or dark. These series often cover the topic of death and destruction and casualties very often, but brush it aside or treat it almost like a fun fantasy kind of thing. About magic and climbing towers, getting famous and rich, and maybe even going back in time. Ooh. But most series end the death and destruction then and there. Meanwhile, The World After the Fall goes all in. Right off the bat, a third of the population has died. Meanwhile, everyone tries to climb the tower, becoming tower walkers, including our main character Jaehwan. But it's not all fanfare and fun, as most people who climb the tower die while climbing. Die or use the regression stone. A powerful stone that turns back time to send the user back to when they were summoned into the tower. Amazing and strangely familiar. Anyways, people either die or use these stones, running back to the past to fix their mistakes, leaving a small handful of people left to try and fight the tower. Humanity's last defenders, the ones brave enough to try and fight and not be tempted to use these stones. But as they continue to fight, more and more people die. And by the end of the tower, literally the first episode at floor 99, our main character, Jaehua, is alone. The last human alive. So against using the regression stone, fighting for years, spending literally 15 years on the last floor fighting an ice dragon. But that's when everything changes. I mentioned at the beginning that this series kind of sticks it to other series in the same genre. Reverse isekais aren't these fun fantasy series where people would use magic and become hunters. They would be desolate and horrifying. Most people would in fact die. A lot of people would perish. It would be a terrible time for a lot of people. But it's also a massive screw you to time travel. You see, time travel is used weirdly a lot. Now, time travel is also weird and iffy. Most don't talk too much about it. Usually the protagonist knows more than most. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago my S-Class Hunters, and there are plenty of series that deal with that, even you solo leveling. By the way, I called solo leveling warrior in that video, and it was absolutely called out by it. Anyways, time travel! Even the world after the fall uses it, but not in the way you'd think. First things first, our main character, Jae-hwan, never uses the regression stone, and is in stark opposition to the idea of even using one, believing that people who travel back in time are cowards, that you shouldn't focus on the past, on what you could have done. Instead, you should focus on the present, on the world you live in right now. Focus on what you can do right now. Jae-hwan focuses on the present and how he can fight against problems now, instead of running to the past and trying to fix his problems and fix his mistakes. Even if all his friends are dead, even if he's the only human alive, he would rather fight to the death than ever go back in time. However, turns out things aren't quite as simple as they seem. When Jae-hwan manages to beat the ice dragon on the 99th floor, the 100th floor opens up, or the control room, and that's where he meets Beastren, a demon with, I'll be honest, the coolest design ever. God, I love him. But that's when this demon drops some truth bombs on us, the readers, and Jae-hwan himself. This tower is the Nightmare Tower, and the entire tower was just the tutorial. But more importantly, the Nightmare Tower was just that, a nightmare, basically a dream, a way for demons to find and cultivate strong souls and sell them to participate in the main game. For the people who died in the tower, they didn't actually die. Instead, they simply wake up, never even remembering their time in the tower. Jae-hwan himself has been in a coma this entire time, which has actually only been for about a month, instead of the years he spent in this tower. Meanwhile, the bigger truth bomb comes in these regression stones. That they aren't actually stones that let you travel back in time. Their actual names are Nightmare Stones, which trap the user in a dream created by the Dream Demon. A nightmare within a nightmare. Those who wish to have gone back in time have only trapped themselves into a worse fate. Instead of just dying and waking up in the real world, the people who tried to go back in time to fix their mistake have only trapped themselves in a dream that they'll never wake from. It's a problem that many of us have had to deal with, myself included. Not the fact that a massive tower traps us in a dream and we have to fight through it and possibly die. Instead, wishing that we can go back in time, wishing that we can fix the dumb mistakes that we made, choose a better option, that we would know what happens in the future and we could prepare and plan accordingly. But this series isn't about that. It's not about knowing what the future holds. It's not about fixing the mistakes of the past. Instead, it's all about the here and the now. The series continues outside of the tower, after Jae-hwan manages to defeat the demon who is literally running the entire tower, after being able to see the true nature of everything. Not only seeing the fine golden particles in the air that help him see things that aren't seen by others, but also that the Nightmare Towers are actually just the roots of the world of chaos, the roots to the tree of illusion. He doesn't stop with defeating the demon Beastren, who I dearly miss so much. I love him and he will never get any attention. Anyways, Jae-hwan destroys the tower, climbing into the new world and planning to take the fight to the Dream Demon themselves. As he continues into the new world of chaos, meeting the Witch of Destruction, and when confronted in a dangerous situation, he asks her a simple question. If she could go back in time, Would she? If she could return to fix her mistakes, would she? To which she answers quite plainly with, and of course she wouldn't. She's made her own path, worked as hard as she could to get to the place where she is now. Worked to become the Witch of Destruction, which is a sick name, by the way. She worked as hard as she could to get to the place now. She's not gonna forfeit it even if she dies. And seemingly this one interaction proves that she's worth saving. That aspiration, that determination, the desire to fight for the future you want instead of the future you could have would make all the difference in someone. And makes this series stick out a little more than others. Maybe series have our protagonists travel back in time to fix their mistakes, to become stronger and better, to save loved ones or even the world. But you gotta remember, you got one life. You can't go back in time. Stop wishing that you can go back to fix the mistakes. Stop wishing that you can go back to do something else, to be someone else, to fix your mistakes. You got one life. So stop living in the past and make the future you want to see. And make sure you check out The World After the Fall on Webtoon, updating once a week. And like always, thank you for watching. Take care.